Will Richard Engel please come forward?
Reverend Father President, I present to you Richard Engel to be awarded the honorary degree Doctor of Humane Letters. Over the past decade, Richard Engel has provided searing and captivating coverage of the Middle East during a time of historic tumult and change. Through his dogged and courageous reporting of wars, revolutions, and political shifts in the region, he has earned a reputation as one of the best foreign correspondents of our time. His appointment as chief foreign correspondent for NBC News in 2008 was the culmination of a lifelong striving. As a child, he grew up in New York City, struggling in class because of dyslexia, but mostly overcame it. He attended Stanford University, graduating in 1996 with a degree in international relations and an ambition to become a journalist covering the biggest story of his generation. With that goal in mind, he took $2,000 in savings and moved to the Middle East, specifically to Cairo, where he took classes in Arabic, eventually becoming fluent, and began working as a freelance reporter. In 2003, as journalists were generally being pulled out of Iraq in advance of the war that was about to begin there, Engel slipped into Baghdad and covered the US-led invasion as a freelancer for NBC News, using his own handheld video camera. He would become one of the few Western journalists to cover the entire war. Engel joined NBC News in 2003 and served as a primary Iraq correspondent, senior Middle East correspondent, and Beirut bureau chief before becoming chief foreign correspondent in 2008. He has also covered the war in Afghanistan, the 2006 Israel-Hezbollah conflict, the uprisings in Egypt and Libya, and the current conflict in Syria, where he and his production team were kidnapped for 5 days in December. He is the author of 2 books, A Fist in the Hornet's Nest, on the ground in Baghdad before, during, and after the war, and a follow-up, War Journal, My 5 Years in Iraq. His many honors include 7 News and Documentary Emmy Awards, the Edward R. Murrow Award, and the Medill Medal for Courage in Journalism, awarded for War Zone Diary, his documentary on the day-to-day realities of covering the Iraq War.
For his exemplary journalism that has promoted public understanding of upheavals in the Middle East at a critical juncture in that region's history, we, the President and trustees of Fordham University, in solemn convocation assembled, and in accord with the chartered authority bestowed upon us by the Regents of the University of the State of New York, declare Richard Engel, Doctor of Humane Letters honoris causa, and that he may enjoy all the rights and privileges of this, our highest honor. We have issued these letters patent under our hand and under the corporate seal of the university on this, the 18th day of May, in the year of our Lord, 2013. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor now to present to you Richard Engel, Dr. Engel, this year's commencement speaker.
Good morning. It is a pleasure to be here, and now turning the attention back to you, the truly important people and the reason we are here today. And of course, our friends in the airline business. So, good morning. Congratulations. It is an honor to be here. Thank you for this invitation. And what I want to talk to you today is about guts. Without guts, you may as well not be alive. And that may sound tough and unforgiving, but so is life. So there it is. And I want to talk about guts, and by guts, I don't mean bravery. I don't mean having the nerves to stand on the edge of a plane and jump out. I mean having the courage to break conventions. I mean having the courage to decide what you want and to go for it. If you wait for opportunities to be handed to you, if you wait for a big break, if you wait for the time when you will be in charge of your life, you will always be waiting, and you will die waiting. I started off exactly where you are. This was my starting block. I was sitting at my graduation, and 2 weeks later, I packed 2 suitcases and I moved to Cairo. I decided I wanted to be a foreign correspondent, and I had a very romantic notion of what that was at the time. I thought I would be wearing white suits and smoking cigarettes in a long holder as I typed away on a typewriter while my lovely female assistant named Fifi poured me martinis. That was the idea, anyway. I arrived in Cairo and I found it somewhat different. I shuffled off the plane, hot and dirty. I had no contacts, and no one was waiting for me. I moved to a 7-story walk-up on the top floor. For half of the week, there was no water at all, but there were big cockroaches. One was so big, I could actually hear it walking on the floor. The floors were made of wood, and I could hear it pitter-patter on the floorboards. And when I looked at it, it looked back at me. This was not a great apartment. There was no glass in the windows, just cardboard. I didn't speak a word of Arabic at the time, and there was no Fifi. I had $2,000 with me, and that was my nest egg, which was going to get me from roaches and cardboard windows to the typewriter and the white suits and the perfect martinis. And I started hunting for stories. Local stories, crime stories, anything. I started sniffing around a beat that would end up becoming very important. I started to write on Islamic radical groups. And these were people I knew with. These were people who lived in the neighborhood where I was living at the time, and groups that would later become known as Al-Qaeda. And I wrote about them in newspapers, in magazines, and academic journals. And I don't need to tell you that Islamic radicals in the Middle East and Al-Qaeda became a big story. I went on to spend the next 17 years living and reporting in the Middle East. Each place was a different experience, and I relished each one. 4 years in Cairo, 3 years in Jerusalem, 5 years in Baghdad, 3 years in Lebanon, 2 years in Afghanistan, and now splitting time between New York and Turkey. I started out with $2,000, and now let's say I make really good martinis. So the point is, you have to try to live your dream. You have to have the guts to push yourself out of your comfort zone. And most importantly, you have to immerse yourself in whatever it is you want to do. And this is not only for would-be journalists. If you want to be in theater, live the theater, read plays, hang out with actors and directors. Don't wait for someone to offer you a job. If you want to be a writer, then write. Don't wait for people to hand you something, because if you wait for that, you are no better than a beggar. And don't think about the money. I know that sounds easy for me to say. I know some of you have student loans and are worried about finances, and admittedly, that is tough. I get that. But if you do what you love and what you're good at, the money will come. Anyone who created something truly important did it out of inspiration, not by chasing a paycheck. Someone in this audience will do something truly fantastic. Perhaps there's a great scientist among us. Maybe we're sitting with the next great American author or the songwriter who will become the voice of a generation. Who is it going to be? Your life is an adventure that starts now. Everyone right now is being born. Soon you'll realize that pretty much everything you've done until now doesn't matter for very much. And I'm sorry to say that. Sorry. But the time you've spent this far is like a shell on the beach, memories. But I think you already know that. The question is, what do you do next and why? For a second, imagine your life as a pencil. A little fragile number 2 pencil fits comfortably in your hand. That pencil is your life. Short, fragile, and in your hands. Imagine the tip is when you're born, the eraser is when you die. That's it. That's you. Tip to eraser. This long. And then you're done. In the ground, goodbye. Now do something that may sound even more depressing than that. Break off the first 20 years from your pencil. It should be about the first inch or so. The average lifespan in the United States these days is around 80. So if you broke off the first 20, you have 60 left. Now you're holding a much shorter pencil. The first 20 years brought you here alive and hopefully healthy, and I'm sure you've had some fun along the way. But those years are gone. And now it's time for more breaking. Take that pencil and break off the last 10 years as well. Another half inch or so. Those are the last years of your life. Just as the first years didn't really count for much, and don't count for much anymore, the last years are different. I'm not saying they don't matter, they're just not really as formative. And I've probably just offended every grandparent in the audience, and I'm sorry for that. But I think you'll all agree that when you're in your late 70s, you don't have the same options as someone who's 22 years old. For the record, I hope every single person in this audience spends the last 10 years of his or her life on some yacht counting grandchildren with a magic wand. But for the purposes of today, break off those last 10 years. Now, your pencil looks pretty short indeed. The first 20 are gone, so are the last 10. What's left? About 50 years. 50 productive years that will sum you up. 50 years to do something. 50 years to become what you want to be. A great writer, a famous journalist, a brilliant scientist, whatever it is, you have 50 active and productive years to get there. I suggest you decide what you want to do with your life today, right now. I don't mean what job you want. The job is a means. I'm talking about what you want to do with your life as a life. 50 years isn't a lot of time, but it's more than enough if you don't wallow in doubt. Forget angst. Angst is for the rich and the spoiled and the stupid. There is no time for angst. I decided early on what I wanted to do, and that was the best decision I've ever made. I knew what I wanted to do with my life, with my little slice of time on this planet, with my 50 years. And knowing that makes you less afraid of dying. But I'll get to that in a minute. Now, here's the good news in all of this. I have a theory, just a theory, that perhaps can help. It's a theory that may help you decide what to do with your 50. My theory is that there are fundamentally 4 different types of people in this world, 4 archetypes. And I believe it's critical for your success and happiness to know which type of person you are. Because if you know your basic nature and you choose a career that fits, it will help. Because when you choose something that fits your nature, good things happen. The first type is the hedonist, the lover of the good life, the lover of money, of power boats, of weekend houses and fast cars. The hedonist wants a pretty spouse and happiness for happiness' sake. And by the way, this is not such a bad thing. I think most Americans are hedonists. Some of the founding philosophers in American history described the best society as the one that produces the most happiness for the most people. And it's not a stupid way of keeping score, frankly. That's the hedonist. Comfort and happiness, uber alles. The second type is the commander. History books are full of commanders. Commanders have been good, others decidedly less so. Military leaders, presidents, senators, Caesars, pharaohs, and kings, they're all commanders. The commander wants to lead and wants respect more than anything else. He or she will endure hardship, and happiness is not a goal for the commander, nor is comfort. In fact, the commander may thrive by suffering and overcoming hardship. As long as they are blazing the way, commanders are in their element. They are visionaries. They can be leaders. They want to be out front and make a difference. And that's not bad either. In fact, none of these are bad. They're different. The third is the explorer. That's the group I knew that I fit into. The explorer wants to look around. 2 weeks after my graduation, I was off. I never looked back. I wanted to be a foreign correspondent because I thought that would be a way for me to keep traveling and keep moving and keep learning and have fun along the way. I chose to be a journalist because I thought it fit my nature. Now, you have to know who you are first and then find a job that will take you there. The fourth type is the nurturer. The nurturer wants to help others and make other people happy and reduce their pain. The nurturer wants to raise a family, wants to care for children. Nurturers are a selfless group, and God bless the nurturers. Now, the best news. You are all incredibly lucky. You have options. You get to make these choices. Most people don't. I've been in war zones for a long time. I've met nurturers, hedonists, commanders, and explorers who, because of where they live and the famine and poverty and violence all around them, they don't have options. If you're living in Aleppo, Syria today, you don't have the luxury of sitting around and wondering, what's my true nature and what can I do that will allow me to experience it? If you live in Aleppo, Syria today, your main concern is staying alive. You have choices. Don't squander this opportunity. Have the guts to take a chance. Now, to answer my question from earlier, why does knowing who you are make you less afraid of dying? Last December, I was kidnapped in Syria. Gunmen surrounded our car. They threw me and my team into the back of a truck. They executed one of the rebels who was with us. They bound us and duct taped us and moved us from house to house and pretended to shoot us several times. It was very, very unpleasant, and it lasted for 5 days. But as I sat there and thought many times, okay, now I'm about to die. It will come very soon, and it will be a bad death. I also thought, and this is critical, at least I tried. At least I got part of the way. I had my 50 years to accomplish something, and unfortunately I thought I'm not going to get all the way because these people in ski masks are about to cut my life short. I was angry, I was annoyed, but at least I knew I was going to die trying to be myself. And when you have guns pointed at your head, your thoughts are very clear. The fat of doubt is trimmed away. We were eventually rescued when our kidnappers moved us on the 5th night. We were bound and blindfolded in the back of a van, and the kidnappers drove into a rebel checkpoint they hadn't expected. We were in the back. The driver and one of the kidnappers in the front of the van were both killed. We escaped amid the gunfight. Everyone in our team made it out alive and unharmed. 2 of the rebels who accompanied us were killed. 2 of the kidnappers were also killed. We lived to fight another day. Looking back, I wouldn't have wanted to have risked so much doing something I didn't care about. I suspect some of you may be wondering if you can have it all. You may be thinking, well, you're a bit of a nurturer and a bit of an explorer and maybe a bit of a commander too. Can you be all of these things? The answer, unfortunately, is no. Not if you want to do anything truly well. Something has to give. You have to know what you are and stick with it. Take risks or go home. Live life all the way up. And that applies to everything. But the beauty of our world is you don't have to go through this alone. We need to marry or find partners who are different from us. We need to find people to balance us out. There is nothing more important than love and friendship. Life is too hard on your own, and it's a lot less fun. Life is an adventure, and adventures are always more exciting if you have somebody else along for the ride. So, tonight, you all have homework. Ask yourself, who am I, and what will I do with my slice of time? And I expect your answers on my desk Monday morning. Fordham class of 2013. Class dismissed.